Now let's look at how the style.css, which used to contain all the styles for the theme, so everything from how the fonts were selected, the color schemes, the responsive styles, how that has been replaced with this tokenized and modular approach within the theme.json. I've used this arrows here to kind of collapse this pretty large file now to show you the high-level items that it has. So we see here we have settings, styles, and then template parts and custom templates. Let's go and start with these bottom ones first. So this is basically a way to register custom templates and custom template parts, have their titles and elements and identifiers predefined here so that you can reference them later in your theme files. So that is the easy part. The main task of this file is contained with the two settings and styles elements here. The settings, you can think of the tokens, or variables. This basically sets up what options and configuration things are available to your theme when it's active, and what are the design tokens which then the blocks will then use. So that is the styling of, let's say, the font size, the colors, the spacing attributes. All these elements are defined within the settings. And then the styles is basically applying those tokens to different parts of your blocks and different parts of elements that are rendered within the themes. So let's look at a simple example, which is color. We get to define colors that are available for this theme. We're saying, okay, we have this palette that has a base color, which is white. It has a contrasting color. It has an accent 1, accent 2. And now when we get to use it, we can specify the style of the actual font color using the reference to that color base that has been defined as a setting here. But here you can just mentally visualize this as a dynamic property, something that you define within the settings, and then you also give the option for the site users to customize it. Let's say for the coloring, the base color of the background and the text, you define that here. So if a user changes the base color, automatically whatever was using that token gets to inherit that change. We also have a bunch of styling options. So everything with the typography, the individual block style attributes, right? So the buttons having variations, so they can have variations that have a bit different styles. So this is almost like writing CSS, but with JSON. And as you can imagine, this is actually one of the critiques of this approach. So something that was previously well working and had a very good editor support is now encapsulated into this JSON abstraction. So there is obviously like pros and benefits to this approach, but you can also see how it leaves kind of a lot to be desired in terms of developer experience. So for example, this padding value, this dynamically calculated element, there's no way you will be defining this in the block editor, right? In the style controls. So this is kind of combining dynamic token definition with also pure CSS definitions. And a lot of this is actually then extracted by using PHP, is used to generate CSS styles. So the root definition of all these variables is output like that. And also these overrides for different typography elements of the individual blocks is kind of decomposed out of here and transferred into an actual CSS thing. So the question is, to what extent do we get to use CSS, the native CSS it was meant to be used for the web, and to what extent it can be actually ported over to this block.json output? So for that, my answer is the best way to kind of embrace this is to look at the core, the default themes that WordPress core has. There's obviously a lot of innovation around this and experimentation happening in the ecosystem as well. So following along what the core themes do will help you kind of figure out what the best practices are that we need to apply. And we'll also be covering this obviously in our lessons ahead. So all these things that we've defined in the theme eventually land in the controls of the appearance editor here. So the style controls, we can actually control and adjust everything that we saw around the fonts and their sizing. So the text sizing, remember we saw that it had a color. So that's actually under the colors. Let's go back here. So the colors have text as this white. So it is not white, it is the contrast. So that's the token that we've chosen. Notice here that if we switch it to this purple or blue, rather, it actually is an accent 1. So it's taking it from the style definitions, these tokens, as I mentioned. Now, what the users can do is they can actually override this, obviously, right? So now if they don't follow kind of the convention of how dark this color is and how well it works with the rest of the color scheme, it might lead to some unexpected and basically results that don't look great. So that's one of the other added complexities with this kind of freedom to given to the users, is that they can run into situations where the customizations are kind of not working really well. But fortunately, this can as well, similar to the templates themselves, this can also be reset to a blank starting point. So that's really convenient. But as we saw throughout this lesson, a lot of this styling is now the responsibility of that theme.json file, in contrast to CSS files as it was before. It has a lot of pros, a few negatives as well, or at least we have to kind of adjust the tooling that we use to work with this type of customization and adjustments. So in these lessons, we've covered how the themes, the classical themes, were different and what are the new tools that are needed for the block-based builds, where the styling aspect of our sites are now the full responsibility of the user. So things that we used to control are now given to a user. There's obviously a balance that we need to strike that we saw there earlier about the color customization. If we give users the ability to fully control these colors, to specify custom ones, we might end up in a situation where making updates to content, especially if the customizations of colors are done at the block level, are hard to manage over time. And I've seen this personally with enterprise sites. So managing this full customization that we give to users is really important if we need this long-term maintenance aspect of this. And we'll look at this as well throughout this course, how we can remain in control of a few of these elements so that we have this consistency of design and look and feel across the site over many years ahead. This was an overview of the theme.json file and how it has taken over all the styling aspects of our theme, and how the design tokens introduce the variables that the users can customize, which are then referenced as kind of reusable variables essentially across our design system that we're building using the theme.json and all of its different elements in there.